In the spring of 1992, a series of brutal murders along the I-70 corridor left communities in fear and law enforcement agencies scrambling for answers. This stretch of interstate became the hunting ground for a serial killer whose crimes shocked the nation, spanning several states including Indiana, Kansas, and Missouri. Over the course of 29 days, 1,600 miles, and 5 cities, 6 victims would lose their lives. It would take time for all of these cases to be connected to one person. Welcome to our channel, where we talk all things true crime. This video is for educational purposes based on public knowledge. Let's get started.
On April 8, 1992, the body of 26-year-old Robin Folder was found in the storage room in an Indianapolis Payless shoe store. There were only 2 full-time employees on the schedule for the day, and Robin's coworker had called in sick. The district manager of the store had been calling for some time with no answer, so he called the Speedway gas station that was next door. Around 3 p.m., a worker from the gas station said they'd go check. A quick 30-second walk to the store. Lucretia Gollett knew something was wrong as soon as she entered. The cash register was open and there was no signs of a worker. The police were called. Upon investigation, Robin's body would be found. Police believed the killer entered the store around 1:15 p.m. and forced Robin into the storage room. Robin, the store manager, was shot in the back of the head twice with a .22 caliber. The killer fled by 1:30. The scene was eerily clean with no signs of struggle. Less than $100 had been stolen from the cash register. There were no witnesses that yielded any leads.
3 days later, on April 11th, in a strip mall tucked away in East Wichita, Kansas, Patricia Majors and Patricia Smith were killed at a bridal shop. The store had stayed open late for a customer. The shop typically closed at 6 p.m. Police believed the man entering the store only saw one worker and wasn't expecting another person to be in the back. The man forced both women into a room in the back and shot them. When the customer showed up after closing time, he was greeted by a white male holding a firearm. The man asked the customer to go to the shop's back room. Refusing, the witness left the store, called the police, and gave a description of the intruder to a sketch artist. The suspect was described as a thin man, around 5'7" to 5'9", with reddish hair and a pale complexion. Police thought the details of this crime were similar to the one in Indianapolis.
2 weeks later, on April 27th, the suspect traveled to Sylvia's ceramic shop in Terre Haute, Indiana, where Michael McCowan, 40, was working at his mother's store. The suspect shot him immediately. No money was taken, but Michael's wallet was missing. He wasn't forced to a back room like the others. He appeared to be kneeling and stocking shelves when the attack took place. A customer found him lying in an aisle before 5 p.m. Michael was the only male victim. Initially, police believed that the killer mistook Michael as a woman from the back because he had had a ponytail. It was later discovered that Michael had already cut his long hair. Police now believe that because the name of the shop was Sylvia's, the killer assumed that a woman would be working. Once the killer went in, he possibly felt he had to finish what he started, as not to leave behind a witness.
On May 3rd, Nancy Kitzmiller, 24, was found in the back room at a boot village in St. Charles, Missouri by customers, only 6 days after the discovery of Michael in Indiana. Nancy wasn't supposed to be working on this day, but the other employee had called off. As the store manager, Nancy covered the shift. It was unusual for her to work alone, but on this day she was the only employee in the shop. Police arrived on scene at approximately 2:30 p.m. and pronounced Nancy dead. She was killed execution style, just like the other victims. Little money was taken, making robbery a secondary motive. Witnesses say they saw a man sitting outside the store around 12:30 p.m., matching the description of the suspect in the Wichita case. Detectives started picking up on the similarities.
4 days later, on the opposite side of Missouri in Raytown, the body of 37-year-old Sarah Blessing would be discovered in her gift shop, yet again in a strip mall. Around 6 p.m., several witnesses saw a suspicious man wearing a gray sports coat, slacks, and dress shoes around the area. It appeared he was scoping out the shops. He went into a restaurant looking around before leaving and then stood outside of a video store, peering in the window, only to find a man working. It appears that the killer's victims of choice were women. Around 6:30 p.m., the video store owner, Tim Hickman, saw the man enter the gift shop and then heard a pop. Tim peered out his front door to see the man that was in front of his store fleeing around the side of the building. He found Blessing's body, and a grocery clerk saw the man climb a hill behind the crime scene, then vanish. A small amount of money was missing from the store.
After the discovery of Sarah Blessing, the murders seemed to stop as quickly as they began. Casings were found at the crime scenes. The suspect used a .22 caliber handgun in all of the crimes. Almost all victims were petite and had long hair. They were all shot in the back of the head. The murders took place during slow periods of time at small retail stores, several in strip malls, in broad daylight, and not far from I-70. The killer left the scenes quickly. Once the cases were connected, it took about a week to tie them together by ballistics. The weapon is thought to be an Irma work, which is like the weapons used by the German Navy in World War II.
The composite sketch was released to the public. Over 100,000 tips had been called in, most of them naming people that they thought resembled the sketch. CCTV was not common when the killings took place. Very little evidence was collected that could be tested with the technology available in 1992. Police believe the suspect is highly mobile, likely using the interstate to move quickly between states. The I-70 killer was always one step ahead. Despite the media's attention and intense manhunt, he seemed to disappear without a trace after May 1992.
Criminal profilers said the I-70 killer displayed a high level of organization. He knew exactly what he was doing and how to avoid detection. This suggests prior criminal experience, or at least a deep understanding of law enforcement tactics. Detectives believed that they were dealing with a very methodical individual. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, nothing left behind. It was almost like he vanished into thin air after each killing. This case had a significant impact on how serial murder investigations are conducted. It highlighted the need for better interstate cooperation and the sharing of information between different law enforcement agencies.
Over the years, numerous suspects were questioned and several theories emerged. There were theories that the killer might have been a truck driver or someone who traveled frequently for work. This would explain his ability to move quickly and strike in different states. Some believe the killer might have had a military background due to the precision of the murders. Others speculated that he could be a drifter blending into the transient population along the interstate.
Once Ray Floyd became the captain of the St. Charles PD, he asked his chief if he could look into the I-70 killer case. In November 2021, the FBI and law enforcement agencies from 5 cities gathered in St. Charles, Missouri, to create a new task force in hopes of combining information and using new technology to identify the killer. Touch DNA wasn't discovered until years after these crimes. It only requires a very small amount needed to test from handled items. Each department has at least one item from their crime scene and were submitted for advanced DNA testing. The DNA results have come back, but because this is an ongoing investigation, no information has been released at this time.
The identity of the I-70 killer remains a mystery, leaving behind a trail of grief and unanswered questions. The families of the victims continue to seek closure. Memorials and services are held to remember the lives lost and to keep the hope alive that one day justice will be served. The investigation is still open and the search for the killer continues. If you have any information, contact the St. Charles Police Department at 1-800-800-3510 or your local authorities. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember the victims.
Do you have any theories about who the person could be, what their background is? Let us know in the comments below.